Dun dun dun. Checking everything out, making sure everything is still flat. Still all looks pretty flat. Want to make sure my audio is working. Dun dun dun. Sounds like my audio is working. Anyone out there? If there is anybody watching, let me know if I need to turn up my volumes or whatever. It was coming through kind of potent on my other streams. So we need to get ourselves safely back on the moon, I think. Yes, definitely safely back on the moon. And before we start talking about what's going on in Australia, a little bit. Things going good there. Hope everybody is doing fantastical. So, thousands of people protest Corona Cooties lockdowns in Australia. So that's a good thing. Apparently, they're doing some more prison maintenance over there, where they're locking stuff down, and the people aren't having it, and good for them. So I guess pray for all the people who have a brain and decide that they're tired of being lab rats, and they're tired of being prisoners, and they kind of want to be like people, sovereign individuals who don't let the people that are supposed to be their servants kick them around. Yeah, so in Sydney, thousands of people took to the streets and other Australian cities to protest the lockdown restrictions amid another surge in cases. Once again, these are cases, which they can make up out of thin air. And police made several arrests after crowds broke through barriers and threw plastic bottles and oh no, not plastic bottles and plants. That's terrible. Heavy police presence. What else is new? Guys that are in Australia, you guys outnumber those police. Okay. You guys outnumber the police. So I think you'd be all right. And remember, the police in Australia, I don't think they carry guns. Kind of in pretty one-sided battle as far as the protesters versus the police. And in good old America, we've got the police are better armed than the military. So it's not quite the case. But in a lot of these other places like Europe and England and things like that, where they're protesting, I don't think the police can do anything. What are they going to do? Throw their funny looking hat at people? So that is what's going on there. Of course, they have police on horseback. They can run around and poop on the streets. Very, very important that they have police on horseback. Anyways, yeah. So Australia is suffering its worst day of cooties, because we look in here, and apparently they're doing the old prison maintenance lockdown. That's a prison term. New South Wales, home to Australia's most populous city, Sydney and Victoria, reported a total of 886 infections. Are they proven infections, or they just come up on a PCR, right? Because the PCR does not test for people who are actually sick. It just tests for the presence of whatever they happen to be looking for. Does not mean that you're sick. And that comes from the creator of the actual test. Hundreds of unmasked protesters. How dare they? We're seen marching through Melbourne. So anyways, they're saying somewhere in here where it talks about it's 886 infections, it talked about how there were four people that died or something in the last month. And it's like, there's 25 or 30 million people in Australia. You get 4 people. And it didn't actually say that they had died from that. It said that they were connected to it. Meaning they probably had cancer, or they probably had, hit a tree on their motorcycle. And said, yeah, he tested positive. We swabbed him good. And he tested positive. So that is what's going on in Australia. Just wanted to kind of touch on that. In Bloomberg, we're talking about the people who are getting the gene therapy are worried that scientists don't have the answers because apparently the normies out there, who in my personal opinion seem like they all have autism or something, they just won't put the donut down long enough to look at anything other than what their friends tell them or what NPR tells them, and just rather be blissfully unaware of everything going on around them. Now they're starting to figure out, because mainstream is reporting a little bit, that the only people who are getting cooties are people who have actually gotten gene therapy. And the only people that are really dying are the ones that gotten 2 of them. Yeah, you got that. You got the heart palpitations, you got the blood clots, and you got all these things that are affecting these people. And the scientists, they're worried the scientists don't have. And what are we going to do without the scientists? What are we going to do without the experts, the unnamed experts? My friend who's been researching this stuff for 12 hours a day for a year and a half, he doesn't know what he's talking about because there is an unnamed scientist somewhere that says he's wrong. And the fact checkers. Anecdotes tell us what the data can't. The jab people appear to be getting the cooties. Amazing. At a surprisingly high rate. But you know, you have to, you got to wear that gag. When you go to the store, even though you've got your gene therapy and you're a good little slave, you got to wear the gag still, because you're protecting all of those people who didn't get the jab. Even though the people that are getting sick are the people who have already gotten the jab. Yeah, wrap your head around that one. There's a dearth of scientific studies with concrete answers, but leaving the public policymakers and corporate executives to formulate plans based on fragmented information. While some are renewing mask mandates or delaying office reopenings, others cite the lack of clarity to justify staying the course. It can all feel like a mess. Yeah, just stay the course. Nothing makes any sense. It seems like it's a mess. The scientists don't know what's going on, but let's just stay the course because we don't know. Joe Biden's got a mandate or something. I don't know. What's on Netflix? Right? Absent clear public health messaging, the jab people are left confused about how to protect themselves. Now listen to how nonsensical this is. Wasn't the whole reason for getting it to protect yourself? So now what? Are people getting this yet? Are people waking up yet? I don't know. Put the donut down. Just how vulnerable they are is a key variable, not just for public health officials trying to figure out, say, when a booster might be needed. It seems like the only people that are, getting sick are the ones that already been getting stuck like a pincushion. I think they should take all the boosters. Definitely take all the boosters. In lieu of answers, what has emerged is a host of case studies providing somewhat different pictures of breakthrough infections, variables, including when surveys were conducted, whether the Delta variant was present, how much of the population, the Delta. Oh, nonsense. We can't read any more of that. I wanted to get into this. I want to talk about the military. So, like a year ago or so, I did a stream that somebody got very upset with me about, and I did it for them, but they were having an issue where their child was in the military and they were trying to push the vaccines. And because my family is very military connected, I know how a lot of these things work. When it comes to not doing what the military wants you to do, particularly when it comes to experimental drugs. All right. And because my opinion is like, well, why is your kid in the military anyway? I mean, you really want him to be a door kicker for the New World Order. But I digress. Um, Vaccine resistance in the military remains strong, a dilemma for Pentagon as mandate looms. Now, see, when mandates, Joe Biden talks about mandates and the governors of states talk about mandates and mandate this and mandate this, like they're little emperors and they're little kings. Guys, mandates don't mean anything to the general population at all. At all. Okay? The president, the governor, they can say whatever they want to. And if they're granted emergency powers for whatever, it has to be stipulated what the emergency is for. And they're limited by emergency powers acts within the state. The states all have different things, and the federal government has different things as far as what you can do for emergency powers. None of them include enslaving the population. All right? But if the president mandates something and you work for the government, the president's your boss. You work for the feds. I don't know if that trickles down to the states yet, but I'm sure it does in some regard. But there are some states who are kind of bucking the system. There are a lot more federally controlled states than other states. A lot more federal funds go to different states, right? So that's kind of up in the air. But let's just say your state governor says there's a mandate or there's some kind of a lockdown or there's some kind of whatever. If you're not a government employee, that doesn't apply to you. He's not your boss. He's not your king. He's not your emperor. But when we do look at the military, the president of the United States is the 5-star general. Okay? They have to do whatever. You're a GI. That is a government issue. You are owned by the government. They own you. So, yeah, they can do all their force stuff, but you do still have a choice. They're not going to hold you down and inject you with stuff. They're not going to force you to take all your pills, but you might not have a career in the military anymore. You understand? That's just like the nurses have to go through it right now, where they're trying to say, hey, you got to take this thing or you can't be a nurse and you can't work here. They're doing it all over the place. And, unfortunately, I'm not a nurse to go fight this stuff because it's pretty easy to fight. But trying to explain stuff like, to the average person is impossible. People don't think about these things or even worry about these things until it's like right on their plate. A year and a half ago, I'm saying, figure out liability and make people accept liability before you take anything. That should end it right there. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it when you're talking about a quasi, semi, sort of private, sort of organization. Hospitals are very state run and all of this stuff, but they still have to go by the basic rules. You don't work for the governor just because you work at a hospital. They've managed to pass certain laws for the public good, though, depending on what state or what county or whatever you are, where they managed to pass things where, like, you got to have your, what is the big one? Tuberculosis is a big one. You got to test for tuberculosis and all this other stuff that it's illegal to do that in any other field except for nursing. But the old jab is still experimental, so they can't force that crap on anybody, which is why they're trying to do the big push to try and make it legal or try and make it FDA approved, which will backfire because the second they make it FDA approved and a bunch of people get it, everyone's going to be coming after the federal government. And then they'll have to release the news stories because it's like, it's an approved thing. And all the people under mind control will be snapped out of it because they're looking at the federal government like, Daddy, what should I do, Daddy? Right? And then if Daddy hurts you, then they get mad and then they wake up a little bit. But, we'll see. I don't see it getting approved, but kind of one of those color of law, color of approval kind of things. But as it relates to the military, here's your choice. There's something like 40% of the military won't do it. Won't. So you've got like 3.5 million people in the military, and you're going to cut your military down to 1.5 million? right? And what are the legal ramifications of that? Because you have a contract where you have a term of service that it's like, I agree to be your slave for 4 years. You agree to pay my education, or you agree to house and feed me for 4 years, or you agree, whatever. It's a contract. So if they come out with this thing that's like, oh yeah, dude, take this experimental drug, and I'm like, I didn't agree to that. You know, it's a contract on both ways. So we'll see what happens. Oh, it's hilarious that these guys ain't doing it. They're like, no. Why is the military not taking it? They take all the other stuff. They finally figure out the Gulf War syndrome came from the stuff they were giving them. They figured that out. Here's what it is. You know, there was a study that came out very recently, like a week ago, that quantified the education levels of the people who were getting cootie vax, right? Quantified the education level of all the people that were doing it. Well, the people who would not take it were the people who didn't have an education. They refused to take it. The other people who would not take it are the people who were doctors, the people that had PhDs, okay? All them 4-year degree guys were like, sign me up. Sign me up. They get a donut. All the 4-year degree people who got suckered into that education system, paying way too much money for that stuff, who just did what everybody else told them to do and looked around, looked left, looked right. Oh, he's going to school. I got to go to school too. All them people, they're the ones lining up. And of course, the elderly people, right? But I'm talking about the people who are productive and actually doing something. 4-year degree guys are all like 80%. 80% jab. The people who dropped out of high school, no. The people who are PhDs, no. The military, no. Now, what does the military have? A lot of people who didn't go through school. A lot of people who come from, the school of hard knocks that don't have a whole lot of opportunity, and they want to get out of their present situation for whatever reason, change the scenery, see the world, and they actually want to go learn and experience something. They go out there, they're like, no. They would be considered the non-educated. No, not doing it. So good for the military. Well, what are they going to do without their, the little Gestapo mafia running around? They don't want to take orders. They actually have some generals out there too that refuse to have any of their people get jabbed. So it's interesting that the old Empire's army is kind of doing a little mutiny there. And the military is a little more based than the actual general population. Imagine that, guys. Imagine that. Anyways, that's where we're at. Looks like we got Jason here. You were near Sydney, weren't you, Jason? Like we got a couple of people here. Excellent, excellent. So, in relation to that, where possibility for one of the reasons, I think it was just a 20-year plan with the whole Afghanistan thing, where, I mean, do you think it's really a coincidence that they're pulling the troops out September 11th, 20 years later? I don't think that's a coincidence at all. On purpose. It was the 20-year plan. But let's just say that they stayed there and 1 million of the soldiers from all the different branches left the military because they wouldn't take the jab. And all those 1 million disobedient soldiers are out amongst the population now, who can fill everybody in as to now they're jaded, right? Because they lost their contract with the government. They're jaded, and they get to go out and say, yeah, they kicked me out because I wouldn't do this, and here is why. I mean, the old America's like, still support our troops, right? Support our troops, rah, rah, sis, boom, bah, America. What if you have all these guys who ain't gonna take their stuff regardless of a mandate, and then they come back home, and they're jaded because they got kicked out? And I think a lot of people will listen to them. So on the other note, of the withdrawing from Afghanistan, I did want to talk about, at the same time we have the whole thing of we have Delta Cooties. Delta Cooties is out. You look at the guys that are loading up on the plane from Afghanistan, and they're not looking like, they're really in danger of getting hurt. It's not like they want to. The news makes it sound like the Taliban have overrun the airport and people are holding on to the helicopters like in Vietnam, because the actual enemy was at the gates. And that's not what it looks like here. It looks like everybody was pulled in from the field and they all just got on planes and flew away. But what I also wanted to point out is that not one soldier is wearing a gag. Now, living in close quarters with other people, that's supposed to spread cooties. And wouldn't you want to make sure that your fighting force is up at tip-top strength? None of them are wearing the gags. None of them are wearing the gags. Here's another picture that was taken as they're loading up on the C-130s, and not one of them got the gag on. And then we got this picture where they're flying the C-130s out to a military base, and then they're taking regular commercial air traffic. And as they come home, they all got the gag on. You'd think it'd be more dangerous in a third world country like Afghanistan, where everybody's living in tents and in close quarters and everything. Nope. We gotta put the gags on. We're doing a photo shoot. We're doing a photo shoot. So I guess that's what we got. That's all that's new and exciting. The Aussies are putting up a fight. And it's interesting, this is actually coming out of NPR, which is why I wanted to pull it up. Because the NPR is the state-run media. And they're actually saying, they're actually said there is thousands protesting. Most of the time they say dozens. That's their favorite word. Dozens protest. And you look at the picture, and it looks like that. And they say dozens. Dozens of people protesting. It's like, yeah, a dozen thousands, maybe. So good for those guys. In America, I haven't heard of any other than, some nurses are mad. And people are like wondering what they want to do. And they're like, here's the wife worked in the industry and knows a lot of the people. We're talking to her about it. And they're saying, well, I don't want to have to find another job. I like my job. And it's like, no, you don't like your job. See, this is the disassociative mental, what do you call it? Mental dysfunction, right? The people that are all upset and they're not going to get the jab, but they like their job and they're trying to find a solution and all this. And it's like, what do you mean you like your job? They're the one that's putting you through all of this stress. They're the one that wants to shoot you up with this experimental thing. You have had to wear a gag and goggles and a smock and gloves and all this stuff for the last year because of your job. What do you mean you like your job? I don't get it. No, you don't like your job. And like I said, there's a lot of class action lawsuits going on with all that stuff, but you'll never hear about it. And everyone seems to think that whatever my neighbor is doing and comparing what they're doing to what everybody else is doing, and now's not really the time to be doing that. You can just see, unless you want to follow them down to the grave. There's not a lot of hope for a great number of people out there who want to argue about the people who don't argue, but under the people who don't believe in the vax and they they are worried about problems from it, but then they get it anyway. And it's like, if you're that controlled by what other people are telling you or your job is telling you or whatever, it's like, I don't know. The old doesn't leave room for much hope. But hey, it'll be a hell of a ride. And this is there's no better time than now to be a political dissident, you should say, because you actually have people with you who will stand with you if you organize something, right? 10 years ago, you could talk about all sorts of different things in protests. No one's going to care, right? You want to protest, they want to take away your assault rifles or something like that. No one really cares. People want to. Nobody really even protested when they have the thing after September 11th, the peace and safety bill, whatever that was, that allowed everybody to spy on all of your internet traffic and all of your phone conversations and all of this and that. And like, where's the protest? Where's the whole righteous anger and fury? It's not really there, because most people were waving their little flag, going, "Yeah, let's go turn the desert into glass. Let's go get the guy in the cave," and all this stuff. But nowadays, everybody knows that something is wrong. But there is a large portion of the population who will continue to turn their brain off until somebody that they know that's close to them actually dies due to getting a shot. But then, there are some people out there who get the shot and end up in the hospital with an swollen heart. And then they say, well, I'd do it all over again, and you can't help mental illness in that regard. But, so that's what we got. Everyone take care, take it easy, and have a good night. Live from the moon, Just Plain Science. Earth is still flat, and Australia is fighting back, and so are the military forces. With that,